I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining.
Did you see what just happened in Congress? Representative Jasmine Crockett absolutely tore into Kash Patel, calling him the least qualified FBI director in history. And honestly, after watching that exchange, it's hard to disagree. This wasn't just a political outburst. It was a moment of truth that exposed how deep the dysfunction runs inside our justice system. If you're tired of the spin and want real talk about what's happening in Washington, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Freedom Pulse Media and turn on notifications, because we're breaking down the stories that the mainstream refuses to tell. Stay informed, stay aware, and let's keep holding power accountable together.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining. Yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you are already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe. I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues. And frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs. You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I'll respond. Kash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, Deputy Director of National Intelligence with the National Security Council, Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI Director. I think that's a pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country. And we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing. With that, I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I think you're witnessing some auditions, clickbait auditions for the Academy Award for my Democratic colleagues. We'll see how they fare as they're on MSNBC later on today. But do you care, before I launch into my line of questioning, to respond to Ms. Crockett from Texas on that very elaborate and theatric display?
Here's what I've learned in my government service. I don't give a damn what they say about me as long as I'm succeeding in the mission. We're succeeding in the mission because the men and women of the FBI have never been empowered to do more work and to hit the streets harder than by President Trump's authorities and resources he's given us. And so all I care about is that we are capturing more child predators than ever before, taking more drugs off the streets than ever before, that we are capturing murderers at a significantly historic rate, and we're delivering this country the lowest murder rate in recorded history. That are facts that you cannot dispute. But you can come at me all you want. I don't care.
Thank you, Director, for that. And we appreciate your service. We appreciate the results speak for themselves, I think, pretty plainly, and your commitment not only to results, but to transparency. So we do appreciate that.
Man, this one got heated fast. Representative Jasmine Crockett did not hold back during her confrontation with Kash Patel, now positioned as the so-called FBI director. And let's be honest, if you thought hearings in Washington couldn't get any more absurd, this one proves otherwise. Before we dive into what went down, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Freedom Pulse Media. We're here to cut through the noise, expose the double standards, and hold power accountable, no matter who's in charge. Now, let's talk about what just happened. Jasmine Crockett came out swinging, calling Patel the least qualified FBI director in history. That's not just political rhetoric. It's based on fact. Kash Patel has never served within the FBI, has no prior law enforcement leadership background, and yet somehow, under this version of America, he's leading the top federal investigative agency. This isn't about partisanship. It's about basic qualifications. Crockett's frustration was visible and, frankly, understandable. She pointed out that the FBI, under this new leadership, has failed to adequately address white supremacy and right-wing extremism, which remains the biggest domestic terror threat in the country. And she's not wrong. The data has shown this for years, yet somehow, federal focus always seems to shift toward low-priority culture wars instead of the actual violence happening on the ground. She also brought up a painful truth. People of color, especially Black Americans, don't feel safe. Not because they distrust law enforcement as an idea, but because of how law enforcement operates in practice. The double standard is glaring. When white nationalist threats emerge, there's silence or delay. But when peaceful protesters stand up for racial justice, the response is instant and forceful. That's the imbalance she's calling out. Meanwhile, Patel's response was predictable political theater. Instead of addressing the concerns, staffing shortages, redirection of resources, racial violence, the rise of hate crimes, he brushed it off as auditions for MSNBC. That kind of arrogance tells you everything. He's not defending the FBI's credibility. He's defending his loyalty to Trump and a political narrative that rewards deflection over results. And then he claimed the FBI is succeeding in the mission, capturing more predators, reducing crime, lowering murder rates. Sure, those stats sound impressive when thrown around in a soundbite, but where's the transparency? Where's the data? Because right now, it looks like an attempt to spin the optics while Americans are still facing systemic threats at home. Let's not forget what Crockett reminded everyone of: members of Congress from both parties receiving death threats, some even fearing for their lives and sleeping armed at night. This isn't partisan paranoia. It's reality. Political violence is rising, and ignoring where it comes from only emboldens the people responsible. At the end of the day, this clash wasn't just about personality or politics. It was about leadership. Crockett is demanding accountability from someone who has shown none. And while Republicans mocked her as theatrical, what she said reflects what millions of Americans are feeling: frustration, exhaustion, and fear that the institutions meant to protect us are being hollowed out for political loyalty. So whether you agree with her or not, the takeaway is clear: leadership matters. Experience matters. And ignoring domestic terror for political gain puts all of us at risk. If you want to stay informed on stories like this, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe to Freedom Pulse Media. We'll continue to cover the stories that mainstream outlets twist or ignore, bringing you the real conversations that define the future of American democracy. Because this isn't about left or right, it's about truth and accountability. Stay tuned, stay vigilant, and as always, stay free.